Throughout our lives as humans, we fight. When we're angry, we fight. When we're happy, we fight. Even when your mother makes a terrible dish for dinner, we fight. We fought for significant reasons like World War I and II, and we fought for trivial reasons like the Salvador-Honduras War that started over a soccer match. Perhaps most of these wars had objectives, but amidst it all, there were people fighting without a purpose. They would invade a couple of towns, causing devastation, just to change the atmosphere. The largest number of casualties were on their hands, surpassing even Hitler himself. Welcome with us the fiercest people on Earth, the Vikings. The Vikings were the most aggressive tribes that emerged in the history of Europe. They were originally Germanic tribes of Aryan descent, characterized by red hair, just like Prince Harry. Their name at the time was Northmen. The word Viking originated from their Old Norse language, meaning inhabitants of the bay or explorers. Their homeland was in northern Europe, in the Scandinavian region, which now includes Sweden, Denmark, Norway, and Iceland. These are now the nations of cheese and tuna cans, but they used to be the nations of blood and hunting. At the beginning of the 7th century, they were just farmers and fishermen. Their currency was either fish or stones made of gold and other metals. They also traded slaves as freelance work on the side. The region they lived in had a harsh climate. Whatever they planted, the snow would ruin it. It's not clear to me why they didn't think of selling ice cream instead. However, since they were neighboring tribes and there was no single governing authority, it was natural for them to fight and steal from each other. If someone reached for something, they would undoubtedly take it. Until they ran out of things to fight each other over, they decided to take their boats and explore new areas for hunting or farming, an activity that they could do to get rid of the negative energy, but they didn't find pleasure in it. So they decided to hunt human beings. On one of their voyages, on July 8, 793 AD, they landed on the eastern coast of England. At that time, England was not a unified country but rather a collection of kingdoms. The land they landed on belonged to the Kingdom of the Saxons, specifically in the region of Lindisfarne, a peaceful village with a rich Christian monastery. Of course, the Vikings thought it was inappropriate to enter the place with empty hands. So they entered with their swords and axes, attacked the monastery, killed everyone inside, and looted everything they found. Then they went back to their ships, following the principle, make the visit short, pleasant, and worth it. They were indeed brutal people, but they had a sense of manners, apparently. And thus, the Viking journey began, which would continue with the English territories and their ancient empires. Since the Vikings were not organized armies, they followed a military policy initially called plunder and retreat because they were people who had no discipline or patience to stay in one place for a long time. With time, they became more organized, especially as their expansions and explorations reached new lands in Greenland and the coasts of Europe. It is said that they were the first to discover islands and territories in North America, 500 years before Columbus. Their battles even reached the heart of Europe in France in the 9th century. One of their most famous battles was the Battle of Paris Bridge on November 24, 885. The battle took place in the region of Normandy and was led by the Viking leader Rollo. They faced Count Odo, who defended the city walls during the siege until King Charles II arrived and negotiated a large ransom of silver with them. The Vikings continued their expansion into Asia and reached the Crimea and Russia. The Vikings' only hope in war was to die in battle and enter the Hall of Valhalla, which inspired them to fight fiercely and reveal their heads to their enemies. Valhalla is a large hall in Asgard, their belief in the afterlife paradise, where Odin welcomed the fallen warriors in battle. On the other hand, those who died a normal death or were considered sinners went to Hel, the goddess of the underworld, in their faith. The Vikings persisted in their wars and terrorized the world until they weakened, and some of them converted to Christianity. Their last battle in England was the Battle of Stamford Bridge in 1066, which ended in the defeat of the Vikings. Afterward, their culture started to disappear, merging more with Europeans, and their ancient way of life vanished. The question remains, why were the Vikings so violent? It wasn't just in battle, even their origins were violent. Their creation myth in Norse mythology, which the Vikings followed before Christianity, was also violent. It was believed that our planet and world were made of killing and blood. Their most famous god, Odin, fought alongside his brother, a giant called Ymir. After defeating him, they used his blood to create the sea, his bones to form mountains, and his flesh to shape the earth. These people saw violence as the essence of the planet's creation. In short, these people were ingrained with a belief in killing and bloodshed. Violence was not strange to them, and it also affected their upbringing. This even reflected in the children's games there, which felt like army training. One of these games involved a child drowning another child in water and holding them underwater. They also had the practice of sacrificing virgin girls to sea monsters, as well as killing slaves and burying them with their masters when they died. Add to that the tribal wars between them for the slightest reason, and sometimes even without a reason, purely for plunder and looting. They would also wear bear and animal skins during war to make their enemies feel that they were not humans. Furthermore, their screams and war cries resembled terrifying animal sounds to intimidate their enemies. Other research suggests that the reason for their violence was a type of fungus called crow's bread that grew there. If you're not convinced by the crow's bread theory, it could be a type of alcoholic beverage or dried fish they consumed. During war, their sense of pain was diminished, and that instilled fear in people. Let me tell you that this method was also similar to the tactics used by the Tatars in their wars. In the end, we don't want you to be violent like them, but that doesn't mean you can't fight alongside us to spread this video to the rest of the world.